we had an 800-foot bore. We had been drilling in the Chantilly, Virginia area for approximately 6 months on this job. We were coming in at the tail end of that job to do the worst bores that were left, basically. And we were drilling with an air hammer. We drilled out 800 feet. And normally, in the conditions we were in, we would run a fluted reamer in until we get out of the clay and into the rock, which in that area, if you're 12 feet deep, you're in pretty hard shell. So we knew we hammered out, so we knew what we were going to be in. But we brought this down to test it rather than run the fluted down to the hard rock, push out and put a roller cone on. We decided to try to go to a 12-inch hole with just this bit, and really it worked way better than I expected. I mean, I expected it to work good, but it not only went through the clay faster than a fluted reamer would have, in my opinion, it also cut the rock faster than the roller cone would have, probably twice as fast. And we went straight to a 12-inch hole without any problem. We were only using a 36 by 50 Vermeer directional drill with fire stick 2 rods on, which aren't real meaty. They were 15-foot rods, and the drill didn't struggle a bit. We didn't have to use a lot of pull pressure. We didn't have to slow our rotation down to save bearings. Basically, we turned about 60 RPMs. We could have turned faster if we wanted to. That's just where we felt that it was smooth. And, it cut right through the rock. We actually used air because we normally run hammers, so we had an air compressor on site. We always like to ream with air because it keeps everything cleaner in there, and we use less mud. And the VersaReam worked really well with the air in conjunction with mud.
Well, let's talk about one of the problems with this VersaReamer is the people that you was drilling for thought you drilled it so fast. They didn't want to pay you for rock. Is that right?
Right. We shot it out with an air hammer, and it took a few days, which we knew it was rock, and at that time they knew it was rock. But when we reamed it in 8 hours, I think, total, and they were questioning whether or not we were even in rock, which at the time, some of the material that we went through, there was no stress on the drill at all. We were starting to question whether the reamer was still on the end of the rods or not. It was coming back through some of the stuff so quick. And of course, then you would get to the harder spots of the rock and you knew everything was all right, but it'd slow you down a little. But yeah, the company that we were working for was questioning whether or not it was rock, which it was already pre-tested as being rock. Was the only reason why we were there is because it was already tried. The particular shot we had that reamer on had already been tried 5 times by other drillers, and the shot couldn't be made. And we made the shot with the air hammer system, so everybody knew it was hard, and we could prove it just by other methods. Couldn't even cut the rock.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely raised some eyebrows, and we had to explain to them that we were testing something new, and it was probably going to change a lot of the rules that they had on whether or not, how they judge whether or not things are rock. Like AT&T, if you don't spend this much time there, it's not rock. That's their motto, their theory, and it's just not the case with the VersaReam. They're gonna have to change the rules around. There's no way you can, you're just not gonna be able to sit there that long. Not that you want to, but they seem to want you to, so they can justify it being rock. And they go out sometimes and test our stuff and test holes. I'm sure they did there with their questions, but They knew it was rock. They found out for sure that where they could test, it was definitely rock, and it was hard. So there was no question. All in all, we definitely got paid for the bore. So they wouldn't have paid us if it wasn't rock. But that was a big problem at the time because I wasn't sure that they weren't just playing a game like, you know, well, you done it as fast as you could do dirt, so why would we pay you rock? You know, but in reality, you know, we had money in the air compressor and the fuel and the, you know, even though it was a lot less than we anticipated going into the bore, we got the bore done, you know, days ahead of schedule, so that's just more production that we made. We was able to move on to another bore rather than still be sitting there. So
that's a good problem to have, to be drilling too fast.
Yeah, I think that's a problem everybody would like to have.
Well, Jack, I appreciate you coming in and giving us your testimonial and sharing your experiences with us. And Jack's probably one of the best drillers in the country. And, we are very proud to have Jack to test our reamers and work with us on other projects we've been worked on in the past. And it's been a pleasure, Jack. Thank you very much.